Sip the witch's lavender cocoa, breathe with the rain, and drift into a silver soft sleep. Nothing urgent lives here. Welcome, friend. Tonight, Halloween is gentle. Porch lights fade to amber, and rain writes soft letters on the window. A kind witch named Morwenna brews velvety cocoa with lavender from moonlit fairy gardens and a whisper of star anise. She doesn't chase thrills, she tends tired souls. Feel the steam rise. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the quiet be your quilt. Nothing urgent lives here. Breathe and drift. The night arrives the way a shawl is set across tired shoulders. Quiet, warm at the edges, soft along the neck. Halloween has finished its bright parade. Doorbells have gone silent. Footsteps no longer scatter like leaves. In the stillness that follows, the town seems to lean into itself and listen. Maple Street glows with a low, amber hush. Porch pumpkins breathe their last gold through thin faces. Wicks blink. A breeze threads the hedges and carries the faintest scent of cinnamon and rain-damp earth. Over the roofs, the moon lifts like a silver bowl. It is full enough to catch the shapes of chimneys, the lace of branches, the long, peaceful lines of telephone wires. The light is gentle. The light is kind. Morwenna stands on her threshold and lets that light rest on her hands. The night knows her, and she knows the night. Her cottage is cedar and stone, and a little tilt of roof that gathers leaves the way an old book gathers stories. Bundles of dried herbs drowse beneath the eaves. A cat gray as dusk winds around her ankles and purrs with the slow confidence of a metronome made of wool and warmth. It is a good night, Morwenna says, though no one has asked. Her voice is low and even, worn smooth with years of speaking blessings into air. The cat agrees with a rumbling breath. In the field beyond the garden, crickets keep a gentle rhythm, and somewhere far off a gate sighs on its hinge. The world is settling. The world is safe. Maple Street is a quilt of small things, a curtain drawn halfway, leaving a ribbon of lamplight on the sill, a pair of boots by a door, placed close together like quiet companions, a bicycle sleeping on its kickstand with a string of tiny orange bulbs looped around the basket, one last bead of light trembling before it goes out. The pavement, cool and even, holds a scatter of maple leaves that curl at the edges like resting hands. Everything asks for slower steps. Everything asks for softer eyes. Morwenna steps down from the porch and feels the stones press a familiar pattern into her soles. Each step is a remembering. Each step is a small, calm bell. The sky above is deep and blue, and not wholly dark, the kind of blue that seems made of velvet and breath. She inhales. The air is clean and cool. The air tastes faintly of wood smoke and the sweet, distant promise of rain. Her shoulders drop without instruction. Across the lane, a single window glows. Behind the glow, an older couple moves like shadows in a snow globe. One figure rinses teacups, the other sets a book aside and smooths a blanket. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, a living quiet that spreads like warm milk in a cup of cocoa. Morwenna smiles, small and private. She has known urgencies. Tonight is not one. On the corner, the maple tree that named the street keeps its own patient watch. Its leaves, red as hearth embers, lift and turn in the breeze as if the tree is breathing with the town. A distant cloud slides across the moon, thinning the silver and then restoring it again. Light gathers on the road like water. The cat follows Morwenna to the garden gate and then sits, deciding to guard the threshold with half-shut eyes and the whole of his soft, purring attention. "Keep watch, Pip," Morwenna says. The cat blinks in the slow way of someone who understands everything important. She walks the boundary of her garden, fingers brushing the fence. Lavender rests there, sleeping in its rose, a soft gray-green that drinks the moon and gives it back as a hush. Behind the lavender, rosemary stands straight and brave, as if it were a little forest for miniature birds. The soil is dark and damp. Dew has begun to lace the paths. Morwenna touches the lavender, not to harvest yet, only to greet it, the way you greet a friend you will ask a favor of later. The scent lifts powdery, clean, faintly sweet. It turns in the air and threads through her hair like a ribbon of gentle thought. She thinks of the town and the tired people inside it, the woman on Birch Street who cannot unhook her jaw from the day, the man on the hill who stacks his unread emails into a leaning tower in his mind, the nurse who will come home at midnight and need a way to cross the bridge from fluorescent wakefulness to wool blanket rest. She does not know all their names. She knows their quiet aches. She knows the knots. Far above, the clouds rearrange themselves into soft islands and then into nothing at all. The stars appear, not sharp, but round-edged, as if dipped in milk. Morwenna lifts her face. The cool touches her cheeks like a kind hand. In that pause, the night feels like a room with a door that has just drifted open. "Come in," it seems to say. "Come in and sit." She listens to the invitation. She listens to the kettle inside her cottage, which is not yet singing, but thinks about singing. On her way back to the porch, she gathers 3 fallen maple leaves. They are the shape of open palms. They carry little veins of silver light where the moon slips along them. She lays the leaves on the rail and smooths them as if tucking them in. A simple ritual, a small, kind thing. The cat lifts his head, then returns to the pleasant work of purring. The porch boards creak in the old language of wood that has seen winters and summers and curtains of rain. The sound is peaceful. The house, too, is beginning to drowse. Morwenna rests her hand on the door frame and closes her eyes for a breath, then another, then one more. In, soft and cool. Out, slower, gentler. The breath loosens places that do not loosen by themselves. With the third exhale, she feels the night reach back and steady her. She thinks of the broom in the corner, smooth with use, handle polished by the memory of her palms. She thinks of rooftops and ribbons, and the far, soft shape of the river. All of it will wait. The beginning of her work is always the same. to make a quiet inside herself that matches the quiet outside, to let the moon be the measure of her movements, to let gentle be the first ingredient and the last. A small drizzle begins, barely more than a mist. It lays a sheen of silver over the pumpkins and stones. The rain says hush in a voice like silk sliding over cedar. Morwenna listens. She hears the kettles of 100 kitchens resting after a busy evening. She hears a late bus sighing as it turns at the depot. She hears her own heart keep its low, reliable drum. Nothing hurries. Nothing presses. The town is a cradle, and the night is a slow, rocking hand. She steps inside to lift the old copper kettle and polish its curve with a cloth. It will hum soon. It will sing like a remembered lullaby, but not yet. Part of the magic is this moment before a space as soft as a folded blanket, as quiet as a library after the lights go low. The space where the heart realizes it can untie itself, strand by strand. When she opens the cupboard, a faint sweetness lingers. Cocoa powder tucked in glass, star anise sleeping in a tin like tiny bronze stars. Their scent is patient. Their promise is simple. She touches the containers the way a musician touches the closed lid of a piano, feeling the music inside without pressing a key. It will be time. Soon. Not yet. The kettle knows. The moon knows. The cat knows. Morwenna returns to the doorway and looks again at Maple Street. The rain has deepened to a soft, steady thread. It hangs in the air like a fine curtain, silver and kind. Far down the block, a porch light clicks from bright to amber, then to a quiet glow no brighter than a candle cupped in two hands. A door settles. A latch lifts and lowers with a feathered sound. Sleep is approaching the town on gentle feet. She lifts a palm and offers a small greeting to the night, a habit learned long ago. Welcome, she whispers. The word goes out and does not hurry back. It touches the maple tree, the bicycles, the boots, the window glass. It touches the roofs like a blessing. It settles in the lavender. The night, already kind, becomes kinder. Then she closes the door, slowly, so the hinges can finish their soft sentence. Inside, the room holds a warm dusk. A candle waits by the stove. The kettle rests on the iron with the patience of mountains. Morwenna smiles again, a quiet snowfall of a smile, and sets the candle alight. Flame echoes moon, moon echoes flame. The little circle of light gathers the edges of the room and smooths them. Soon, she says, to the kettle. To the cat now curled like a comma on the mat, to the town, to anyone who needs to hear it. Soon. And the word is gentle, and the air is gentle, and the night, silver and quiet, breathes with her in peaceful time. The candle makes a small sun on the stovetop. Its flame steadies, then softens, then steadies again, as if it is practicing the calm it will ask the room to keep. Shadows fold neatly into the corners. The copper kettle sits like a trusted elder, round and kindly, with a lid that glints when the wick leans. Morwenna sets her palm against its side, the way one greets a friend's shoulder, no rush, only recognition, The stove answers with a low, even warmth, not fierce, not bright. A hearth temper warmth, patient and sure. She turns the dial until the iron feels as though it is thinking of summer, not summoning it. And she fills the kettle with fresh water drawn from the clay jar by the window. The water's surface catches a little slice of moonlight. It trembles once, then grows still. The cat, who has moved from comma to curled apostrophe, purrs from the mat. His purr is a slow motor stitched of wool, a reassurance, a metronome that keeps time for restful hearts. Morwenna moves like a lullaby. Each action is a bar of music measured in quiet, silver beats. She opens the cupboard and brings down the jar of cocoa, the tin of star anise, the small crock of oat cream. Lids lift. A ribbon of scent unwinds dark, velvety chocolate, warm spice that smells like memory, the faint sweetness of cream. She pauses to breathe them one by one. In, dark and soft. Out, easy and gentle. In, warm and round. Out, slower still. Steam begins without song. At first, only a thought in the kettle. Thin curls, pale as fog on a river. They rise and vanish, rise and vanish, rise again. The room welcomes the first soft hiss, as if it recognizes a long-lost lullaby. Morwenna sets a wide pottery bowl on the counter. Its glaze is a gray-blue that looks like rain seen through morning. She spoons the cocoa into the bowl and taps the spoon twice. The sound is small and wooden, like a door softly knocked and softly opened. She measures with her eye and her years, not with lines on a cup, enough to be rich, not enough to be heavy. She adds a bare pinch of sea salt, the way the sea adds itself to the air. She sets 3 star anise in her palm, tiny stars, bronze and sweet, and crushes them lightly in a mortar so they lean toward release. Their scent lifts, bright but peaceful, a spark that chooses not to burn. Into the cocoa they go, under the veil of oat cream. She stirs with a wooden spoon worn to the shape of her hand. The spoon whispers against the bowl in round, even circles. The kettle warms. The kettle thinks. The kettle hums. It is not boiling. It is not urgent. It is a rain hum, the kind that comes from a roof when weather is gentle, when drops are many and small and silver. The sound fills the spaces between floorboard creaks and candle sighs, and the room seems to breathe with it. Morwenna tips the first ribbon of hot water into the cocoa and folds it in. Dark turns to velvet. Velvet turns to liquid dusk. She holds the bowl near her face and lets the cocoa's breath become her own. Steam touches her cheeks. It carries the star's faint spice to the tip of her tongue before she has even tasted. She adds more water, then more, stirring slow, steady circles that widen peace the way a pebble widens a pond. When the mixture grows glossy and smooth, she sets the bowl back and rests her hand on the counter, feeling its coolness meet her warm palm. Balance answers. From the rafters, the little herb bundles shift as the house settles. Lavender, rosemary, thyme, soft silhouettes in the candle's small, patient sun. They lend the air a garden hush. The rain at the window stays delicate, 1,000 silver threads combed by a careful hand. The cat lifts his head, blinks, and closes his eyes again, as if tasting the room with sight and finding it sweet. Morwenna thinks of shoulders she has never seen, but somehow knows shoulders that carry ledgers and deadlines, and the sound of notifications that do not sleep. She stirs a blessing into the cocoa with each round turn of the spoon. Gentle, soft, peaceful, dream, silver, quiet. The words do not need to be heard to listen. They settle into the brew like petals settling on water. Her breath keeps time. The kettle sings a note just higher than a whisper. The stove keeps earth beneath everything. She sets out the cups she will carry tonight. Not a matched set, not fine. Each is beloved for its shape, its weight, its kindness in the hand. A blue one with a crack that has learned to live with gold. A stout green one that makes cocoa taste like winter afternoons. A tall, simple one, white as cloud edges. She warms them with a rinse of hot water so the first pour will not be shocked awake. Warmth meets warmth. Soft meets soft. The cocoa deepens. She lifts the spoon and a ribbon falls back into the bowl like melted velvet. She adds a last breath of oat cream, only enough to make the surface shine as if the moon itself had melted and stirred into the drink. She tastes with the back of the spoon. The flavor is low and round, a bell rung far away, a blanket of dark sweetness with a small, bright star hidden inside. She nods. The kettle answers with another rain hum, a little fuller now, a little nearer song. Morwenna sets the kettle aside so its voice stays in the daylight of calm and does not climb into boil. She wipes the rim of the bowl with a cloth, not for fuss, but for care. She places the ladle in the bowl and lets it rest. Everything rests. The candle flame leans. The window gathers small tears of silver. The floor remembers summer sun and releases it back through old grain. Her house is a held breath, released slowly. On the table, she lays a linen towel and then a tray. The tray is oiled wood, smooth as a river stone. She lines it with the warmed cups, each waiting, each ready to hold a small kindness. Beside the tray, her spool of dusk-colored ribbon and the small stack of notes she cut earlier. She will write them fresh, even though the words are known to her hands, for untying knots, for loosening shoulders, for softer thoughts, for the easy drift toward dream. The pen moves without hurry. The nib makes a whisper, as if speaking to the paper in the language of moth wings. She dots each note with a tiny lavender sprig, not for potion, only for scent, only for the way scent can lift a tired mind and set it down gently elsewhere. The house approves with a soft timber sigh. The cat rolls to his other side and arranges himself like a small loaf of sleep. When she lifts the bowl to pour the first cup, the cocoa moves like a dark ribbon. The cup receives it gratefully, holding heat the way hands hold hands. A small bloom of steam rises and curls, touches the candlelight, and disappears into the story the room is telling. She cups the blue mug between her palms. The heat passes into her fingers, into the fine bones of the hand, into the wrist, into the quiet river of the pulse. She breathes with it. She lets her shoulders fall that last, small inch they were still holding. Outside, the rain becomes a little more present, not louder, only nearer, like a friend sliding into the next seat and saying, "I'm here." The window listens and agrees. The kettle keeps humming, a silver thread through the cloth of the room. Morwenna pours a second cup, then a third, then a fourth. Each pour is an invitation to rest that does not insist, does not persuade, only opens its palm and waits. She ties notes to cups with the dusk ribbon. The knots are simple, the bows small, nothing that would ask anyone to struggle. A soft brush of thumb sets each bow right. The tray fills with small moons rimmed in steam. She adds a small jar of honey to sweeten where sweetness is wanted, and a tiny pinch pot of cinnamon to warm where warmth is needed. Not rules, options, gentle permissions. Before she lifts the tray, she pauses to listen, to the floorboard that creaks like an old friend clearing its throat, to the cat whose purr has become long, river slow, to the candle which has made its circle of gold a little wider, to the kettle, steady as weathered rain. Her heart lines up with these sounds, like a choir joining an old hymn it knows by breath more than by words. She speaks to the room as one speaks to a companion who understands silence. "May this be soft," she says. "May this be peaceful." The words do not need to travel far. They settle in the cocoa. They nestle under the ribbons. They press a kiss to the windowsill. She sets her broom beside the door, the way a sailor sets a hand to a tiller, not to force the course, but to feel it. The tray is warm and sure in her hands. The mugs murmur against one another, ceramic to ceramic, a pottery lullaby. Steam makes pale veils that rise and thin and rise again. The night gathers on the other side of the door, patient and silver and quiet. Morwenna tilts her head and listens one more time to the kettle's rain hum. It answers with a soft, final sigh, as if to say, "Enough for now. Rest will carry the rest." She opens the door. The room's warmth steps out with her and meets the cool in a tender braid of air. The rain greets the cocoa with the ease of cousins at a calm reunion. Moonlight lays a simple path over the porch boards. The cat watches with half-closed eyes, approving, already halfway to dream. Morwenna lifts the tray, light as a good thought, sure as a kind hand, and into the gentle, silver night she goes, with cups that steam like small, soft lanterns, and a kettle's hum still humming in her chest like rain on a roof that promises sleep. The path to the garden is a soft ribbon of earth, dark and damp and kind beneath the soles. Rain has thinned to a silver mist that kisses the cheek and fades, a gentle, gentle touch. Moonlight lays quiet coins in the puddles. The hedges breathe out the day and breathe in the night, small leaves shivering, then still. Morwenna steps into the hush as if stepping into a familiar lullaby, and the lullaby steps back to meet her. Behind the cottage, the fairy gardens keep their own calm hour, No fences, no gates, only low stones, a curved bed of herbs, the thin, sleeping song of crickets, and the steady lantern of the moon. Lavender holds the center like a tiny, wool-soft forest. Gray-green stems, pale blooms, a brushed silver sheen where dew and starlight agree. Every stalk wears a quiet bell of scent. Every bell is a memory of summer bees, now tucked away, dreaming. Morwenna pauses at the edge to greet the night in this smaller room of night. She does not speak the greeting aloud. Her hands say it, her breath says it. She moves slow so the air can arrange itself around her. The mist folds itself into her shawl and makes it cool and sweet. A hedgehog, busy with nothing, sniffs along the stones and then vanishes into a pocket of time. The soil holds the day's warmth low, like a hidden ember. Roots sip, roots rest. The gentle part, please, Morwenna thinks, and the garden hears. She kneels, careful of the damp, and the ground answers with a soft press upward, taking her weight and giving it back as steadiness. Between the lavender rows, mustard seed stars of chamomile linger, their faces turned to whatever light remains. A moth writes slow cursive in the air, pale wings speaking a language of drifting, drifting, drifting. The word quiet repeats without sound. The word soft repeats and makes itself true. From her pocket, she draws a small pair of shears, their tips rounded from long, careful use. Beside them, a length of linen, already braided at one edge where her fingers found idle work by the stove. She places the cloth on her knee, touches the shears once, and then rests her hands, waiting. Waiting is part of harvesting. Waiting lets the garden say yes. Rain ticks faintly on the rosemary spines. Rosemary replies with bright, clean breath that does not hurry. The lavender's scent rises when she cups a stem. It moves like steam from a silk kettle, powdery, gentle, restful, and it holds in it the small silver roads that bees made all summer, the soft hum of their bodies, the warm wool of their work. Under her fingertips, the stem is cool and thin and living. She thanks it quiet words, quiet breath, and takes only the blossoms that carry the night's blue along their edges. Snip, a single sound, delicate as a teaspoon on a saucer. She lays the stem on the linen. The dew leaves a dark kiss, then lightens. She moves along the row in this way: thank, snip, lay down, thank, snip, lay down until a small bundle gathers like a folded cloud. Not much, only enough for the brew and a few ribbon sprigs for notes. This is the rule she keeps with the earth. Take a kindness, leave the shape of kindness behind. The garden remains generous when the touch remains small. Beyond the lavender, the fairy places are almost still. If someone looked quickly, they would see only moss and tiny ferns, a thimble of rainwater set into a stone, the glimmer of a spider's silk line between two blades of oatgrass. But Morwenna's looking is slow. She sees what slow looking always sees: the faint blue pulse at the base of a toadstool, a glow-like breath around the tiny bellflowers, the way dew on the clover hums with a tender silver patience. Once, years ago, She could not see any of this. Then she learned to breathe like night, and night revealed its quiet rooms. She leaves a crumb of honey on the stone cup, not because the fair folk demand it, but because gifting is a way to polish the world from the inside. The honey carries summer into autumn. It keeps the soft bridge between seasons strong. A little wind moves through the birch leaves with the sound of turned pages. Somewhere on the other side of the hedge, the river shifts and says hush. Morwenna adds a few sprigs of lemon balm to the bundle. Bright green, fresh as a morning window. A barely sunlit scent for tired thoughts that need a small lantern. She touches the chamomile and decides to let it sleep. Each plant is a person tonight, with its own bed and blanket. She does not wake what does not need waking. A snail crosses the path at a dreamer's pace, leaving a silver sentence that begins nowhere and ends nowhere, only wanders. She waits for him to pass. Waiting is part of sharing. The soil wears his trail like jewelry. A drop of rain gathers at the end of a lavender bell and pauses, heavy as a thought, then falls into the linen and disappears, leaving no mark but a deeper calm in the air. She ties the bundle with the braided edge of cloth. Not tight, not firm, the gentlest knot that will hold. The sprigs lean together like friends on a bench, shoulders touching, heads bowed. She lifts them, and the scent rises rich and soft. A room full of cool pillows, a window open to rain, a cat asleep on a wool blanket, the steady metronome of a clock that is not counting down to anything. Lavender, lemon balm, memory. Quiet, quiet, quiet. When she stands, her knees reply with a creak that sounds like an old floorboard pleased to be heard. She smiles. The garden smiles back with a little glimmering of dew. In the cottage window, the candle keeps its small, warm sun for her return. The cat is a soft pebble on the sill. He lifts his head and blinks as if blessing the harvest with sleepy approval. Morwenna breathes, slow and deep and easy. The cool fills her chest. The cool empties again. The knot under her ribs unknots another small degree. She walks the perimeter once more, fingertips brushing sage, then hyssop, then mint. The mint wakes a bit and sighs, bright and simple, and then returns to its bed. She whispers a list of names to the garden, not human names, plant names, night names, silver fern, moon thyme, rain bell, soot root, lantern moss. The list is a lullaby with no melody and all melody. It tucks the beds in as she speaks them. It tucks her in, too. At the far corner, where the stones make a little harbor for wind, she keeps a bowl of water. It holds the sky like a promise. Tonight, the bowl holds a cloud and the small gold coin of the cottage candle. She dips her fingers and lets the cool run along her lifeline, then touches a drop to each wrist, to her forehead, to the soft space over her heart. A simple ritual, a quiet reminder. Be water, be moon, be soft. When she reaches the lavender again, she leans to the plants and leaves her breath, among them the breath of a woman who will carry them into warmth, who will ask them to do the work they love, to loosen, to soften, to bless. The plants reply by simply being what they are, which is how all true blessing works. Back at the path, she pauses and turns to let the whole garden rest once more inside her eyes. Rain, mist, dew, small lights, small lives, soft rooms within rooms. She says, "Thank you," aloud this time. And the hedgehog, the moth, the clover, the thyme, the tiny blue pulse under the toadstool, the spider silk stringing a little harp, each takes a portion of the thanks and wears it like a shawl. The air warms by a whisper. With the bundle in her hands, she returns to the porch. The boards greet her with that old, kind language of creaks and settled sighs. The cat meets her at the door and threads himself through her ankles like a piece of friendly weather. She bends to stroke his back. His fur is a warm cloud that purrs. He smells faintly of ash and rain. He leans into her touch with the gravity of trust. Inside, the room remembers her absence and then grows whole again. The candle is steady. The kettle holds a soft heat, waiting, not wanting. The cups on the tray look like small moons set down on a wooden night. She unties the linen and lays the lavender on the table. The scent moves through the room and makes a gentle cathedral of it. Pillars of steam will rise soon. For now, columns of fragrance hold the roof of quiet. She plucks a few blooms with her thumb and forefinger and scatters them into the cooling bowl, where the cocoa rests like a pool of dusk. Purple gray falls into brown black and disappears, leaving only the taste of a soft field under summer stars. She rubs a leaf of lemon balm between her fingers and touches it to the edge of each cup, a green note among dark chords. Nothing showy, a whisper in a room of whispers. The rain at the window becomes a hymn again, measured and even, a small choir of silver voices. The floor gives a contented murmur as the house shifts deeper into its evening. Morwenna's shoulders have fallen the last easy inch. In the gentle bowl of silence, she can almost hear the town's breaths. One here, one there, settling, spreading, slowing. She covers the lavender that remains and sets it by the candle so the warmth can coax its scent into the air while she travels. The leftover sprigs she nests beside the notes and ribbon, ready to ride along on the cups like tiny, soft flags of peace. When she lifts the tray again, it feels even more like a small altar of kindness. Cocoa dark as quiet, steam pale as morning, lavender silver as the moon's own shawl. Gentle, she says, the way a sailor says, fair wind. The word sits on the surface of the cocoa and does not sink. It simply becomes part of the steam. The cat curls back into his comma. The kettle hums the answer it has hummed all evening, like rain, like rest, like the easy drift toward dream. Morwenna opens the door once more. The garden exhales, the night inhales. Between these two soft movements, she steps out, carrying the velvet warmth, the moonlit lavender, the little stars of anise tucked somewhere inside the dark. The path gleams, the town waits, and the fairy of sleep is already pushing her small boat from the shore. The table is a calm harbor of wood and candlelight. Grain runs in slow rivers beneath Morwenna's hands, carrying years of quiet meals, quiet letters, quiet winter evenings, when the wind told its old, soft stories at the eaves. She lays the linen square in the center and smooths the corners as if tucking in a small, sleepy child. The room feels held. The room feels sure. Rain keeps its silver hymn at the window. It is steady now, not loud, just the patient tapping of a friend who will not leave you alone with your thoughts. The cat Pip has drifted to the chair by the stove, where a wool blanket waits like a field of warm cloud. He kneads a little with gentle paws, then folds himself into the shape of rest. A purr rises and falls, the way a lake breathes under moonlight. Floorboards murmur as the house settles deeper into night's lap. Morwenna opens her small tin of papers. Not fancy notes, not anything store-bought or sharp with brightness. Each card is cut by hand from cream stock, edges rounded slightly by thumb and time. They feel soft as smooth shells, easy to hold, easy to keep. Alongside the cards, a stub of violet wax, a small brass stamp with a sprig engraved on its face, a bottle of ink the color of evening, a pen with a nib that remembers her hand. She sets 10 cards in a neat, gentle row. Her breath finds a kind rhythm. In, slow and cool. Out, slower and softer. The candle watches. The kettle, set back from the heat, keeps a low, contented warmth that feels like a hand over a sleeping child's hair. Steam from the cocoa drifts in pale veils, then disappears into the wood and wool and walls, as if the house itself is drinking. At the top of the first card, she writes, in a hand that curls like fern fronds, for untying knots. Ink glows wet and dark, then dims to soft dusk. She says the words under her breath, as though trying them on the room. The room nods. On the second, for loosening shoulders. She pauses and rolls her own shoulders, once, twice, feeling them drop the small, invisible weights they gathered from the day. She smiles and lets the smile be slow. The cat's purr grows rounder, as if approving. On the third, for softer thoughts, shadows move like cloth in a light wind. The rain agrees with a patient hush. On the fourth, for breath that feels like a warm blanket, she listens to her inhale, then lengthens the exhale until it is longer than the line of ink. Breath is a wool blanket when it is allowed to be. Wool warmed not by fire but by rest. On the fifth, for clocks that do not hurry, she thinks of phones turned face down, of calendars with empty squares at the end of a month, of the quiet sound a closed laptop makes when it becomes a simple, sleeping object again. The pen glides as if on a small stream. On the sixth, for the gentle drift toward dream. The word gentle looks correct wherever it lands. It makes a pillow out of paper. On the seventh, for the jaw that wants to unclench. She touches a finger to the muscle below her ear and releases it with a sigh. The kettle answers with its rain hum, steady, silver, calm. On the eighth, for hands that remember warm cups and kind work, she glances at her own hands, knuckles like smooth stones, ink smudge on the ring finger, a small lavender stain along the thumb. Useful hands, soft enough. On the 9th, for the peaceful night that is already on its way, she draws a tiny moon beside the words, only a crescent, a lowercase letter for the sky. On the 10th, for waking rested, with daylight like milk in a blue bowl, morning is a promise inside every night. She seals it with a dot, a pause. She reads each line again, not to correct, but to let the words set quietly in her chest. Words can be blankets. Words can be bowls. Words can be doors that open to soft rooms. Tonight they are all three. She warms the brass stamp over the candle just long enough to take a small sigh from the metal. A bead of violet wax melts onto the corner of the first card. The drop spreads into a little lake. She presses the sprig seal gently, lifts gently, and finds a tiny lavender pressed in wax, its shape simple and true. Not perfection, presence. The wax cools with a satin sheen, like moonlight on slow river water. She repeats the action, easy and unhurried. Melt, drop, press, lift. Melt, drop, press, lift. The motions become a lullaby for hands. Between cards, she ties lengths of dusk-colored ribbon into small bows, each the size of a thumbprint, the loops loose enough to slide off without tugging. She threads a real sprig of lavender through each bow, a living punctuation to the quiet sentence on the paper. The scent rises in little sighs, meeting cocoa steam, meeting candle warmth, meeting rain at the window. The room takes on a soft, meadowed calm. It is a gentle place to set down a day. Morwenna gathers the cups on the tray and fits a note to each handle. Ceramics touch one another with a tiny music cup to cup, a porcelain hush. The blue mug with the mended crack receives for untying knots. The stout green one holds for clocks that do not hurry. The tall white one keeps for softer thoughts. Each pairing makes sense in her bones. This is not sorting. It is listening. The cups seem to understand what they are meant to carry. She pauses, resting her palms on the edges of the tray, warming them against the wood. Her breath moves in the same even bar as the rain. She lets 5 slow counts guide her. 5. Notice the candle, steady in its small sun. 4. Notice the cocoa steam, soft and silver. 3. Notice the blanket, heavy with quiet, where Pip dreams. 2. Notice the rain, peaceful at the glass. 1. Notice the heart, gentle in its work. She speaks another small blessing, barely more than a thought rubbed smooth. May these words be soft as wool, warm as bread, steady as rain. The blessing slips into the room's seams. It is not theatrical. It is not grand. It is linen on a table, smoothing down the day. From the cupboard, she retrieves a narrow bottle with a cork. Inside it, a few drops of lavender-tinted honey she made last summer when the fields were humming and the world was bright with bees. She sets the bottle in the corner of the tray with a tiny spoon and writes a smaller note. No wax seal this time, only a whisper. Sweetness is allowed. The ink dries quickly, as if the paper already knew. Floorboards give a friendly creak beneath her feet as she shifts weight. Old wood, old bones, old house, all of them singing the same quiet song. We hold you, we hold you, we hold. The cat rolls, blinking, then settles again, sending a small echo of purring into the chair cushion, through the wool, through the legs of the chair, down into the boards, into the foundation, into the ground, where roots knit the town together. The whole place hums with a low, peaceful note. She turns to the window and watches the street for a breath. Maple Street is a page written in soft graphite, smudged by mist. A porch light blinks, deciding whether to keep watch or sleep. It chooses sleep. A bicycle bell rings once in the distance, not as a warning, but as a dream, remembering a summer morning. All is easy, all is slow. Back at the table, she adds 2 more cards, not for handles, but for thresholds. Sometimes, the note belongs to the door more than to the cup, for crossing from bright to dim without stumbling, for rooms that remember you are safe. She touches each card to the cool of the window pane before tucking them under the ribbon spool. The glass fogs around her fingerprints, then clears. The room holds the trace of her passage like a cat holds the warmth of the lap after the person stands. When the last bow lies neat and the notes sit tucked, she lifts the tray and feels its good weight, not heavy, anchoring. The cups nestle inside the oiled wood like stones smoothed by long water. Steam rises in slender banners, silver, quiet, peaceful. The cocoa's surface trembles when she steps, then settles again, a tiny tide in 10 small moons. She sets the tray down once more, only to add one final touch. She returns to her chair and takes up the pen. On a small slip, she writes a single line she has learned to trust in every season. Nothing urgent lives here. She tucks this slip under the braid of ribbon at the tray's handle, where her fingers will see it again and remember. It is for her as much as for the town. Helpers need the words they give away. For a moment, she does nothing. She allows the stillness to be still. She allows the quiet to be quiet. She lets her eyes soften and her breath soften and the edges of the world soften until softness seems to be the only language the night understands. Rain, candle, steam, wool, purr, creak, all the gentle words that require no exclamation, no defense. Then she stands, slow and sure, and slides the loop of the tray over her forearm. She takes up the broom with her free hand. Its handle is warm from the stove side, polished with memory. She pats the pocket that holds a few spare notes and ribbons, in case the night asks for more kindness than planned. It often does, and she is glad. At the door, she pauses, palm against wood, ear to the hinge's soft sentence. She listens to the kettle quiet now, a low ember of heat that promises it will be warm when she returns. She listens to the cat, whose purr has turned to sleep. She listens to the floor, which approves. She listens to the rain, which keeps its silver peace. Gentle, she repeats, a key that opens every lock she means to open, and the word seems to float before her like a small lantern. She opens the door and steps into the night that has made room for her tray of warm moons, her notes made of soft ink and softer hope. The porch breathes cool over her face. Maple Street waits, quiet as wool. The knots in the town are ready to loosen, bough by simple bough, and Morwenna, with her ribboned words and velvet brew, begins her round. The broom rises as a sigh might rise unhurried, even sure of the path the air will make for it. Morwenna steps into the silver space just above the porch rail, and the night receives her with the softest of hands. The tray balances against her arm, warm moons gathered in oiled wood. Steam lifts and thins, small banners that leave nothing but calm where they pass. Below, Maple Street is a ribbon of charcoal and pearl. Above, the moon is a shallow bowl tipped toward kindness. She glides at the height of gutters and gentle chimneys, where roof tiles remember many winters and know the weight of snow, the bright tap of rain, the slow kneel of moss. The broom's bristles whisper to the wind whispers back. Morwenna keeps to the old, steady line. Over the maple at the corner, along the bakery roof, past the studio window, where someone keeps a fern and a jar of brushes. The fern sleeps with its fronds folded like tidy hands. The brushes rest like small trees at the edge of a forest of color. She feels a wish to place a cup there now, but that visit has its own hour. Tonight has an order as gentle as knitting. One loop, then the next. At the first house brick with a blue door, she hovers where the awning makes a small roof for her to lean into. The door carries a wreath of dried hydrangea, faded to straw and cloud. She sets the tray against her hip, takes the stout green mug, and ties to its handle the card that says, "For clocks that do not hurry." The ribbon's loops flutter like moths, then settle into stillness. She lowers the cup to the mat, tucks the notes corner beneath a smooth pebble, and leaves a second slip, for rooms that remember you are safe by the threshold. The door does not need to open to feel it. The wood understands. Back to the air. The broom welcomes her weight the way a quiet chair accepts a tired body without fuss, without squeak, with a small invisible gratitude for being useful again. She rises. Rain stitches thin lines between shingles. A dormer window, left unlatched for cool, breathes out a scent of paper and tea. The night folds the scent into its shawl. At the teacher's house, where a stack of papers leans near the hall, she leaves the blue mug with the mended crack for untying knots. She rests her palm on the cup a heartbeat longer, as if to lend it her own warmth. The steam curls around her hand and vanishes, taking worry with it the way a tide takes a line drawn in sand. The papers on the table seem less tall. The lamp seems relieved. The ribbon's dusk bow bows once and goes still. Rooftops become a map she can read with her bones. The wide slate roof that keeps a piano dry. The narrow shingles above the clockmaker's shop, each one set with patience, each one a reminder that time can be kept with kindness. Morwenna's shadow moves like a quiet river over chimneys. Cats on window seats lift their heads and blink slow. They know her. Sleep is not a stranger. It is a resident. They return to purring, a thread pulled through velvet. She pauses by the small bungalow near the corner, where the porch swing holds a folded quilt. A damp edge of patchwork peeks from under its own weight, a square of faded stars. She leaves a white cup on the rail beside it and tucks the note for the gentle drift toward dream into the quilt's fold. The cup's steam kisses the cloth. The cloth sighs, as blankets do when reminded of their purpose. Down the street, a late lamp burns in a bay window. The shade is tilted, so the light falls not onto the desk, but into the lap of the chair beside it. A lap saved for someone who has not yet sat down. Morwenna rests one foot on the bay's shallow roof and leans forward to set a cup on the sill. For breath that feels like a warm blanket, the fog of the cocoa meets the fog of breath on the glass and makes a brief cloud shaped like a slow, kind thought. She draws a tiny heart there with the back of her finger, a small punctuation the night will erase in minutes. Enough time for noticing, not enough for worry. Between stops, she glides. The broom's handle is smooth as river driftwood in her hand. The air is a wide wool scarf wrapped twice around the town. Chimneys give their steady, faint warm in a second-floor diapering of darkness. A string of paper bats leans on a curtain rod like resting birds. In another window, a bowl of apples glows under the lamp, skin polished to small moons with a dish towel. She passes the bakery and listens to yeast breathe. Even the ovens sleep, even the flower dreams of morning. At the corner, with the tall elm, she steadies above a narrow stoop where shoes wait in a tidy row. 2 pairs, then a third, then an empty space, as if someone will come home and slide into their place without thinking. She leaves the card for the jaw that wants to unclench with a cup that wears a tiny curl of cinnamon like a scarf. The steam smells of quiet kitchens and winter afternoons. She thinks of the missing shoes and sets her palm to the door. Soon, she whispers to the wood. The door relaxes by a measure only a listening hand would feel. The rain thickens a little, then thins. The broom shakes off what it does not need and keeps the rest a sparkle. Morwenna's shawl drinks a small drink and grows cool. She tucks it closer at the throat with one finger and tastes lavender in the air. Softer now, as if the garden itself has floated up to travel with her. Above the library roof, she makes a small circle, a habit from years when she went inside to read the bindings with her fingertips. The library looks asleep in the proper way. Nothing pressing, everything waiting kindly for morning. She turns down Briar Lane. Here houses sit closer, shoulders companionable, porches speaking a quiet language back and forth about weather and repair and who keeps good sugar for borrowing. A single porch light stays at its lowest setting, so low it becomes less a light and more a memory of light. She lands between 2 pots of rosemary and rosemary answers with clear breath. On the mat, a faded welcome, she places a cup and the slip. Nothing urgent lives here. The mat seems to stand a little taller under the words. A gate creaks at the courtyard behind the grocer's, a creak that contains a century of useful sentences. Morwenna smiles. She leaves a cup on the back step with 4 hands that remember warm cups and kind work. The step holds cool and damp, but it welcomes the heat like a hearth welcomes a log. Rooftops keep their purling line in her peripheral vision, a soft hem at the edge of the world. At the end of Briar Lane, a narrow attic window shows a smudge of light, then dark, then light again, the quick flicker of someone walking with a candle. She rises to the angle where dormer meets slate. The attic has a small draft that carries the scent of turpentine and lemon oil. Brushes and canvas, then, and wood polished with patient hands. This will be the painter's stop, the one the table of contents promised later. She leaves a cup on the outer sill nonetheless, only the note for now, nothing urgent here. The steam fogs the glass. The shadow inside pauses. The candle calms. She leaves the cocoa for the fuller hour to come, back over maple, over the river of road, over the silvered leaves of the big tree. The town breathes like a sleeping creature, deep in, deeper out. She listens to the roofline murmurings, slate's cool music, shingles' soft percussion, tin's gentle tapping. Everything is orchestra, nothing is march. The night is conductor, slow and sure. Morwenna checks the tray. 5 cups remain. Honey still glows in its small bottle like a pocket sunrise. Ribbons keep their dusk-colored bows with a quiet pride. She turns toward the hill, where the houses have deep porches and old railings polished by many hands. The first porch holds a rocking chair with a cushion shaped by years of backs. She sets a cup on the arm and tucks for loosening shoulders beneath the cushion's corner. She makes the chair rock once, only once, so it remembers the motion the body will ask of it soon. Slow forward, slow back, slow forward, slow rest. At a brick home with ivy ladders climbing towards second-floor windows, she lands beside a clay pot where mint drowses in emerald heaps. She brushes the top. A cool scent lifts and hides again. The cup here receives, for softer thoughts. The note slides under the saucer. She imagines the hands that will find it, a pause, a half smile, a breath they did not know they were holding released into mint and night and cocoa. She moves on, with that breath folded into her own. By the old clockmaker's shop, the sign painted a lifetime ago sways in a careful wind. It ticks on its hinges in a rhythm the town has learned the way you learn your neighbor's footfall on the stair. She sets a cup on the step and leaves. For clocks that do not hurry again, trusting repetition the way rain trusts roofs, the clock behind the curtain gives a soft, dignified chime, as if to acknowledge the kindness and approve. 2 cups left. The tray is lighter. Her arm notices and thanks her. Her heart keeps its even drum. She turns toward the river street, where the wind runs lanes between houses and brings the silver scent of water. A small mailbox wears a banner of spider silk jeweled with dew. She does not disturb the line. She sets a cup on the railing instead and tucks for the peaceful night that is already on its way into the box's lip. The spider will finish her work. The letter will find its reader in the morning. The final cup she keeps for the corner house with the wide steps and the fern that never seems to tire of being green. On the top step, she places the cup and the note, for waking rested, with daylight like milk in a blue bowl. Morning is planted here in night's soil. She smooths the ribbon once, and the bow becomes the shape of wish. When she rises again, the street looks faintly changed, not brighter, not darker, simply more itself, the way a face looks softer after a kind word is spoken. Ribbons hardly stir now. Doors lean back into their frames with the satisfaction of a chore finished. The rain is thin lace. The moon holds steady, a silver hush. Morwenna glides along the roofline one more time, not to check, not to worry, only to listen to the town's new breath. It is slower, it is rounder, it is wool warm. From one window, a light goes out. From another, a cat's tail flicks once and is still. A curtain settles. Somewhere, a kettle far away gives a last, sweet sigh. Sleep has begun its quiet round. She turns the broom toward the river's shadow and lets the rooftops slip behind like pages turned without noise. The tray, now nearly empty, carries the faintest ribbon of steam, as if remembering. Ribbons have stopped their flutter and lie like dusk-colored commas at quiet doors. The night is pleased, the town is held, and Morwenna, with her work half done and wholly gentle, rides the silver air toward the water's soft, steady song. It begins the way a long-held breath lets go quietly, almost shy, then deeper, then sure. The town, stitched in rain and moonlight, feels the loosen. No trumpet, no bell, only soft changes. Room by room, heart by heart, cup by warm cup. At the brick house with the blue door, the night shift nurse returns on careful feet. The rain has combed the streets into smooth lines. Her shoes whisper against the mat. She reaches for the knob and pauses steam rising like a silver ribbon beside the hydrangea wreath. Her name tucked quietly inside the cup without letters, contained in the warmth itself. She lifts the green mug. Cinnamon drifts up. Lavender rests beneath. The note reads, "For clocks that do not hurry." She closes her eyes before she sips. The hallway light is low, a pond of amber on wood. With the first swallow, her shoulders drop that last reluctant inch. Her jaw slackens. Inside, the apartment knows her shape and makes a space that fits it exactly. She leans against the door, eyes closed, listening to rain, to her breath, to quiet. When she moves again, it is toward the shower, then toward a wool blanket, then toward sleep that arrives like a soft friend. The cup waits on the sill, exhaling gentle steam into the dimness. The teacher, who left papers in a leaning tower near the lamp, opens the door because the house seemed to call her there. Not loud, not urgent, just a soft lift at the edge of attention. On the stoop, the blue mug with its mended gold and a note for untying knots. She smiles without showing teeth. The slow kind of smile that begins in the eyes and takes its time. She gathers the cup with both hands and carries it to the table. The papers loosen a little simply by being watched. She tastes cocoa and star anise and something that feels like a warm hand at the center of the back. The red pen remains capped. The lamp's shade tilts as she tilts her head, reading the room. Not tonight, not now. She places a shawl on her own shoulders, wool soft, wool gentle, and reads a poem aloud to herself, the sort of poem that is more breathing than words. By the last line, the cup is half gone, and the knot at the base of her skull is a soft, silver thread. A door on Briar Lane opens just wide enough for a hand to slide through. The hand finds the white cup and the little slip tucked under the edge of a quilt for the gentle drift toward dream. A quiet laugh, almost not a laugh, but a breath turned round. The door closes softly. The chain hums once in its track. Inside, a set of wind chimes that came in from the porch after summer hangs near the hallway, silent and still, but the mind hears them very softly anyway. Sleep, sleep, sleep. On the couch, a cat stretches into a line and then a comma and begins a low, blanket-thick purr. The couch remembers 100 Sunday afternoons and becomes, once more, a boat on a sleepy lake. Cup to lips, eyes to window. Rain writes on the glass in slow script that no one needs to read to understand. Near the corner with the tall elm, the house with the tidy line of shoes receives a hush. The empty place in the row waits without ache. On the inside of the door, a post-it note with a list milk, lemons, reply to Ruth, loses its urgency and becomes a suggestion for another day. The cinnamon-scarved cup lives on the newel post briefly, while its owner, a soft-voiced man who keeps quiet birds in his backyard, lifts the ribboned slip and reads for the jaw that wants to unclench. He touches a finger to the hinge below his ear and finds it obedient. He takes the cup to the kitchen and without thinking, turns the clock on the stove to its lowest dim. Time grows woolly. He stands, sipping, listening to rain, to his own breath, to the smallest rustle of fern in the hall. The missing shoes remain a space, but the space is not a wound. It is a doorway that will kindly wait. At the clockmaker's, a chime counts an hour with a velvet glove. Behind the front curtain, thin as breath, the old man sits in a chair whose back has learned his back. A cup warms his hands, and the note for clocks that do not hurry rests under the saucer like a secret he is delighted to keep. He inhales the cocoa, and 1,000 tickings soften in their cases, each becoming less a command, more a heartbeat. He closes his eyes and measures something that does not need measuring. Moon between clouds, rain on tin, cat on cushion, a remembered kiss lit in the mind's soft attic. He opens his eyes and does not wind anything. The shop remains a room where time behaves. Across Maple, the couple with the teacups has left their lamp on low and drifted to the sofa. They find a cup on the sill when they go to close the lace curtain against the rain. For breath that feels like a warm blanket, they share sips the way they share the blanket. A little tug and then a give. Weight passed gently back and forth. The kettle in their kitchen, long cooled, sighs as if remembering, and the floor joins with a contented creak, the cutlery drawer with a tame rattle. The house adds its own breath to theirs until the whole room is wrapped in woolly air. On River Street, where the wind braids itself with the smell of water, a woman stands by the balcony rail with her phone in hand, thumb hovering over a stack of unread messages, lightning bug bright, dew jewels a web at the mailbox. The cup sits by the rail, patient, steam closing its eyes and opening them again. The note reads, "For the peaceful night that is already on its way." She picks up the cup. The phone screen blacks out in her palm. She does not touch it again. Her first sip is a long exhale. Her second is an even longer one. She watches rain blur the river lights into soft comets. Far below, a slow barge carries some cargo to some harbor that has room for it. She imagines her thoughts as small packages, not urgent, not fragile, loaded gently and carried away at the river's pace. Behind the grocer's, the back step holds warmth like a memory. The grocer finds the mug while locking the storeroom door, coat collar up, hat pulled low, weary in a way that is bone and calendar both. He reads, "For hands that remember warm cups and kind work," and laughs, a single sound that opens more room in the chest than a sigh could. He cups the cup. His fingers, lined with the small cuts of honest labor, look like river channels on an old map. He lifts the mug and feels each finger warmed to the knuckle, then to the palm, then to the wrist. In the dark shop, apples smell like small suns. He leans the broom against the wall and lets it stay there, unprotesting, until morning. Up on the hill, where ivy climbs the old bricks, someone who has carried too many thoughts into evening finds a cup at the railing. The note tucked under the saucer for softer thoughts. The mint by the step gives one green breath and sleeps again. He sips and watches the rain pull silver threads from the sky and weave them into a soft cloth over the garden. The loudest thought, always the first in line, backs away, polite for once, and lets the quieter ones speak. The delight of warm socks, the weight of a book in the hand, the surprise of tasting star anise and remembering a winter in another city, a kindness in a doorway, a laugh that made the air bright. He stands there long enough to become a person again, not a tangle of tasks. The porch with the rocking chair learns its old motion. The cushion receives a back. The bough beneath shifts, then settles. For loosening shoulders does what it says in 4 slow breaths, and then does it again for good measure. The chair rocks forward, back, forward, rest, until even the wood knows the pattern by heart. Outside the window, the maple's leaves are darker than sky, lake shapes against a pale shore of cloud. The room adopts the rhythm and becomes a held boat. At the bay window with the tilted shade, the lamp finds its lap and keeps it. The cup fogs the glass briefly, then clears it. A sentence appears in the cleared circle. The cat, curled, ear twitching at each rain tap. The person in the house, someone who has been almost sitting for an hour, sits at last and feels the chair say yes along the spine. For breath that feels like a warm blanket becomes breath that is a warm blanket, edge tucked, weight pleasant, corners smoothed. The cat makes a small bread-kneading motion and sleeps. House by house, the notes unspool into the air. Words become wool. Ink becomes steam. Ribbons become dusk petals on doormats. The rain writes the same line on every window. Peace Peace, peace. Some lights go out, some dim. One remains, a lantern for a reader who will be asleep with a book on the chest in 10 slow pages. Morwenna's cups diminish, and with them, the town's vigilance. Shoulders that were mountains become hills, then meadows. Breaths that were trapped become rivers, then seas. The cat chorus swells, small purrs stitched into thick fabric. Floorboards creak kindly beneath night-walking feet and then settle. Even the wind chooses soft corners over sharp ones. In the studio, where the painter's candle had flickered, the flame steadies. The cup on the sill has fogged the glass in a pale oval. Inside, the brush is cleaned and laid down. The colors in the mind move from bright to deep, from loud to low, and then to a tender gray that means bed. Nothing urgent here waits unclaimed by a hand and is claimed by the room instead. The room believes it. The room teaches it to the person who lives there with a slowed heartbeat and a cooler forehead. Street by street, window by window, wool blanket by wool blanket, the town settles into the gentle, into the soft, into the peaceful. The moon skims free of a cloud and lays a thin silver shawl across every roof. The river, not yet seen, sends its breath ahead cool, damp, kind like a lullaby, arriving before the singer. And when the last cup on this round finds its hands, when the last ribbon lies quiet as dusk on a mat, when the last note leans against the last warm door, the town completes its long, low exhale. It holds the empty space at the end of the breath, the sweet space, the safe space, where sleep steps forward and says, I'm here, far off, almost part of the rain. Another sound begins, the hush voice of water moving in the dark. The river is calling softly, silver on stone, night on night. Morwenna turns her face toward it and glides that way, carrying the lightness that comes after kindness, ready to listen to the water's gentle, silver lullaby. The sound arrives before the water soft, braided, low. A hush that has learned every evening and kept only the tender parts. Morwenna lets the broom drift down through rain and moonlight until her boots meet the river path with the ease of a hand finding a familiar cup. The tray on her arm is almost light now, the warmth a lingering ember along the oiled wood. Steam rises in a faint ribbon from the last small measure, then thins, then is gone. The night accepts it and grows calmer still. The river keeps to its curve the way a sleeping cat keeps to the curve of a windowsill. Its surface breathes. Its banks remember many autumns. Maple leaves rest along the edges like little boats that forgot to leave. The moon lays a narrow road of silver from the opposite shore to Morwenna's feet, as if the water has decided to be a gentler sky for a while. Rain arrives as lace, not thread, touching and vanishing, writing nothing that needs reading. Morwenna walks where reeds bow in courteous rows. The broom hangs loose in her hand. She does not ride now. Walking is right for water that sings in close voice. Pebbles shift underfoot with quiet music, and the path gives back a low memory of warm days, of picnic cloths, of quiet conversations left here to soften and turn into soil. A woolly calm settles across her shoulders, as if the night has brought her a shawl to wear over her shawl. A double kindness. "Evening," she says, and her voice takes on the river's hush without trying. The river answers by doing what it always does, moving where gravity asks, not hurrying, not stopping, changing everything by a patient inch. A heron stands in the shallows like a long thought that has no need to finish. He blinks his slow, golden blink. He knows Morwenna and is not troubled by this small human passing. She lowers herself onto a flat stone, polished by years of sitting. The stone is cool through the hem of her skirt, cool and steady and good. She sets the tray beside her and cradles the last cup, not to drink yet, only to receive the heat into palm and bone. The cocoa's scent, dimmed by travel, stirs again as if it too recognizes the lullaby here and wishes to hum along. Star anise floats like tiny bronze constellations across a dark sky. Lavender, faint as a remembered word, threads the air. On the far bank, willow branches trail their fingertips through the water and make small signatures that drift and disappear, drift and disappear. The river carries each mark the way sleep carries the day, gently, faithfully, changing edges into curves, noise into quiet. Morwenna thinks of the town's shoulders easing, the jaw unhooking, the clocks dimming. She imagines those unspooled anxieties slipping down the gutters, along the stones, and into this very current. The river takes them without comment. The river has space. She cups her ear with a hand and listens as if to a shell. The river is not one voice, but many stones speaking under the skin of water, frogs offering single punctuation marks from the dark, the low whisk of eelgrass combing the flow, rain stitching silvery consonants above. The melody is old and without corners. It does not begin. It does not end. It circles and softens and promises. Morwenna lifts the cup and lets the steam brush her face. She does not sip yet. She breathes the cup the way one might breathe the throat of a wool sweater in winter, catching warmth before it becomes warmth inside. In. Chocolate dusk, soft and round. Out. Lavender hush, slow and soft. In. Sweet star, small and bright. Out. Gentle, gentle, gentle. Her shoulders find their final place. The stones approve with a near silent shift. She places the cup on the rock, safe in a shallow ring she has worn there with years of visits, and slips off her shoes. The path's small chill becomes a kindness against her soles. She steps to the edge and lowers both feet into the slow shallows. Skirt gathered, breath even. Cold meets warm. Ankles learn the night. Pebbles press their calm alphabet into her skin. The river writes, rest, rest, rest. A memory rises with the cool, her first autumn alone, after the long, bright companionship of a friend who taught her how to listen to trees. The ache then was a bell that did not stop. She had brought it here, bewildered and polite, and the river had accepted it, not to erase, not to cure, but to round it, to sand its sharpness into something the heart could hold without hurting. That was the season she learned to brew for others. Kindness had carried her to the far bank and back. Tonight, she thanks the water again with quiet breath, and the way she is careful to step only where the stones are generous. A small fish turns near her ankle, a flash of pewter and pewter. It flicks once, twice, and becomes the river again. From the willow, a single drop falls into the silver road and widens it in rings. Each ring dissolves the next, a soft argument against urgency. Morwenna watches until the last circle becomes water and only water. Then she watches a moment longer, the way one listens after a lullaby has ended, to feel the quiet the song has gathered. The sky is a deep bowl turned over the town and the field and the river and the woman and the stone. Stars appear around the rim like pins in velvet. Clouds move in slow ships that do not dock. Somewhere, a fox steps through grass with the care of a book page turned by clean hands. Farther off, the train breathes, not arriving, not departing, only sleeping in its long house. All the world is busy, not hurrying. Morwenna sits again and draws her feet up, drying them in the smooth wool of her shawl. She slides her shoes back on and feels the good return of leather to skin, shelter to ankle. The last cup waits, still warm enough to speak. She sips. The cocoa is low and round, a bell rung under a blanket. The star anise makes a brief, bright spark on the tongue, and then becomes night air. Lavender opens like a tiny door. She sips again. Each swallow is a small tide going out and coming back kinder. She thinks of the nurse, the teacher, the grocer, the quiet birds, the clock that chose not to be obeyed tonight. She feels them as lights dimming with dignity, as rooms drawing quilts up to the chin, as cats mapping soft circles on the bed and then making perfect stillness. She imagines their breaths braided with the river's breath until the town and the water are one long exhale. The thought pleases the bones behind her ears. A small smile travels, slow as rain on glass, across her face. On the path a little way off, a pair of boots passes and then stops. Their owner, a figure wearing the rain comfortably, hat brim soft as a petal, looks down to the water and says nothing. The river gives them its voice anyway. After a respectful moment, they move on, steps slower than before. Silence can be shared, and both keep it. Morwenna tilts the last sip to the willow, a gift the water will understand. The cup's inside gleams like a light at the bottom of a well. She sets it on the tray and rests her hand on the oiled wood. Warmth has become memory. That is what warmth does when it is used well. It turns into something the heart can keep without carrying. She lets that thought settle like a small, smooth stone in the pocket of her mind. She rises and moves along the bank until the path leans up to a small stone bridge. The bridge is old and kind. Its arch reflects in the water and makes an eye that never closes and never judges. She stands at its center, palms flat on the damp railing, and looks down where the moon's road bends into a softer ribbon. Under the arch, the river narrows, the lullaby deepens. It is here that she whispers the names she has collected without knowing, the ones who could not find sleep, the ones who found it but dropped it, the ones who gave their rest to others and forgot the way back. She does not speak the names we would recognize. She speaks night names that belong to shoulders and brows and hearts. The arch holds the sound, then releases it into water. The river says, "I will carry these a while." A single lantern far upriver blinks in a boathouse window. It makes a small square of gold on the water, and then a longer gold that tapers and vanishes. The rain eases until it is only suggestion. A breeze, pleased, nudges the willow leaves so they say yes in the quietest language. Morwenna answers with a small nod. Her work is a circle, not a line. The river has reminded her again how to complete it. She returns to the sitting stone and takes up the tray. It has the good weight of an instrument that has played its song and is ready to be put away with thanks. She presses her palm to the rock and to the path and to the air, grateful in 3 directions. Then she lifts the broom and feels how the bristles wake joyfully, as if they had been dreaming of wind. Gentle, she says, because the word is true here more than anywhere. The river keeps singing. The town keeps resting. The moon keeps its silver road. She rises into the calm between shore and sky. Below, the water folds over itself like wool blankets layered with care. Above, the clouds open a little pocket and reveal a brighter star. She rides in the pocket, a small figure carrying a small tray in a large, kind night. When the rooftops gather again at the edge of the world, their lines are softer, their chimneys less certain of their chimneyness, content to be quiet bricks with warm breaths. She glides toward the lane where an attic lamp once flickered behind a tilted shade, where brushes sleep in a jar and colors turn to fields. A glow like a lantern waits, not urgent, simply present. Morwenna follows the river's last whisper as it threads the town's underside, then turns toward that window of soft light the way a moth turns toward a candle, not to burn, only to warm. The lullaby of water lingers in her bones. The silver road folds behind her like a page turned without sound, and the night, still gentle, still soft, still peaceful, guides her to the place where one more cup and one more note will make a room remember. Nothing urgent here. The attic window glows like a small harbor in the night, not bright, not loud, only a soft lantern that promises a shore. Morwenna drifts to the eave and lets the broom settle with a whisper along the slate. Rain has become a memory clinging to gutters and leaves. The air is cool and kind. The moon keeps its silver patience over everything. Inside the glass, a studio breathes. Canvases lean against walls the way sleeping boats lean against a dock. Jars hold brushes like tidy forests, bristle crowns softened by use and rinsed clean for rest. A cloth lies across a table, rumpled as a field after wind. Paint has left the faintest constellations on the floorboards, motes of blue, sighs of umber, a crescent of gold. It is a room that keeps work and quiet in the same hand. Morwenna rests the tray on the dormer ledge where shingles sip moonlight. The oiled wood remembers warmth. One cup remains full and velvet dark, the surface shining like night water. Steam wanders up and strokes the glass in pale curls. She slips the small card beneath the cup's handle and lets the ribbon bow fall into place without fuss. Nothing urgent here. The words arrive like a chair pulled close to the fire. She touches the window frame with 2 fingers, greeting the wood. It hums a little, a creak that sounds like gratitude. The lantern within gives a slow breath and steadies. A shape moves shoulders outlined by light, hair pinned back in a loose, easy knot, a sweater falling like soft bark from the curve of the neck. The painter stands at the easel with a brush that has not touched canvas for some minutes. Not stopped, only paused, listening, deciding how to be gentle with the next moment. Morwenna does not knock. She lowers the cup to the sill and leaves it there, a small moon in a wooden cradle. Then she waits in the shadow where slate meets sky. Waiting is a kindness. Waiting says, "This is your room. Your breath may set the pace." Inside, the painter notices steam. Not at once, not with surprise. The noticing happens the way morning light reaches a wall and then reaches farther. Eyes drift to the window, brows soften. A hand sets the brush down in clear water that clouded earlier and is now clean again. A small lake with a silver coin at the bottom. The painter steps closer and opens the window the width of a palm. The room takes a cool sip. The night takes a warm sip, their breath sprayed. "Hello," the painter says, but to whom is not important. To steam, to cup, to night, to the odd goodness of being cared for by something that needs no explanation. Fingers lift the ribbon, easy as lifting a leaf. The card reads itself into the room. Nothing urgent here. The painter smiles, slow and private. The card is set on the sill, and the cup is held with both hands. Heat moves into bone. Shoulders sink the way bread sinks into butter. Breath lengthens. The first sip is small, a scout. Cocoa arrives low, round, velvet dark. The star anise gives a brief light inside the mouth, then becomes warm memory. Lavender brings a gentle edge of field and quiet night, and wool blankets hung to air. The second sip is longer. Some thought that had been talking politely, but too much stops to listen to rain asking for nothing. The lantern makes a soft circle on the floorboards. The circle expands until it meets the walls, then expands again in the mind. Morwenna, still and steady, watches the painter's breath change. It is a thing she never hurries. Watching is part of the blessing. The town has its exhale. The river has its lullaby. Each room deserves its own slow drift. The broom feels light beneath her palm. A small drip loosens from the gutter and travels to ground with no hurry at all. The painter sits at last. A stool near the window knows the shape and allows it without complaint. The sweater's cuff meets the wrist and stays. The cup warms the lap. Steam touches the chin. The eyes travel to the canvas and then away, to the floorboards, to the lantern, to the window. Nothing needs deciding tonight. Colors can keep their edges for morning. The brush rests like a sleeping reed in the jar. Through the opened window, cool air brings the faintest perfume of wet leaves and distant rosemary, and the clean, soft scent of rain on stone. The room returns its scents: linseed whisper, lemon oil, the linen of stretched canvas, the older breath of wood that has seen winters and summers and has nothing left to prove. The two airs mix and settle, making a third air that belongs only to this hour. The painter takes a third sip and leans an elbow on the sill. The cup sits between hands now, not as an object, but as a small fire. Outside, Morwenna hears the cat chorus far off. Some purrs turn to sleep, others still a low thread. Inside, the painter's heartbeat slows until it matches the lantern's small flame, which seems to pulse if one looks long enough. It is a good trick flame has, to be steady and to look like breathing. On the far wall, a canvas holds a landscape that is not a place so much as a feeling. A river in twilight, a shore of willow shadows, a field of rain made with the softest brush. The painter looks at it and does not reach for anything. The choice not to reach is its own choice, and it is gentle. A wool blanket waits in a wicker basket. A book lies face down on a table, spine unbroken, because the story did not need the body tonight. It needed the eyes to soften and close. Morwenna sets a fingertip to the slate and draws nothing, the way a child sometimes draws nothing in air and still feels the picture. She senses the room crossing a threshold, that invisible line between doing and being, between making and letting. She hears the attic's beams release the day with soft clicks. She hears the lantern's wick settle into itself, a tiny cotton sigh. She hears the painter's jaw unhook from the calendar. A small breeze lifts one corner of a pinned paper where color studies rest. The paper flutters, then stops, then flutters again. The painter watches as though it were a bird deciding whether to fold its wings and roost. Not tonight, the painter murmurs to the sketch, and the sketch agrees. The ribbon from the cup lies across the sill like dusk itself, a soft underline beneath the words on the card. The fourth sip is merely a breath held on the tongue and let go. The cup, now half light, gives warmth that is more memory than heat. The painter rises only to dim the lantern a little, then sits again, satisfied by the way the room deepens without turning dark. Windows collect rain beads along their lower edges, where the world has cried a little and then gotten quiet. The attic becomes a pocket in a big coat, safe, close, wool-lined. Morwenna looks beyond the glass to the town's roofline, which has blurred into one gentle shape. The river's song reaches in small threads, weaving into the room. On the street below, a bicycle bell rings once in someone's dream. The painter hears none of it in words. Only the feeling arrives, soft, silver, peaceful. The stool is a boat on a small lake. The cup is a lantern at the bow. The breath is an oar that moves water without making any sound. When the cup sets down for a moment, a hand reaches for a blanket. The wool unfolds with that satisfying hush wool, gives a sound like quiet weather. It crosses knees and finds ankles, and remembers how to be heavy without being too heavy. The painter places the card on the blanket, face up, so the words may keep working. Nothing urgent here. The room believes them. The bones believe them. The eyelids begin the work of becoming soft doors. Morwenna lifts the tray a finger's height to feel its weight, and then sets it down again. There is no need to leave yet. The best part of this errand is not the placing of cups, but the moment after, when rooms discover their gentleness. She allows herself one small breath of pride, not sharp, not bright. Only the kind of pride a gardener feels at nightfall, when the beds look as though the beds made themselves. The painter's head tips back against the wall. The lantern trims its circle. A yawn arrives and leaves, polite. The cup finds the sill, empty, and shines inside with a little moon of residue where cream has left a ring as neat as ink. The brush in the jar leans into another brush like a person leaning into another person at the end of a long, kind day. The paper stops fluttering and lies flat. In that quiet, the room says a small thank you no ear can hear. Morwenna feels it along the skin of the night. She answers with a small nod and with the soft pressure of fingertips on wood. The broom lifts under her hand, eager and obedient. Slate gives a last cool whisper beneath her soles. The window glows once more and then glows less. The lantern turned down to a memory of flame. She eases away from the dormer and the eave and rises to the height where rooftops are soft waves and chimneys are gentle stones. The town below is a quilt now, stitched in silver, backed in wool. Rain hangs only as a rumor along the far trees. The moon is a calm coin in a calm sky. Morwenna carries an empty cup and a full quiet. Ahead, her own cottage keeps a candle in the window, a steady, small sun that remembers her. The path will be dark and kind. The garden will be damp and grateful. The kettle will be warm enough to greet her with a low memory of song. And there is one cup left to pour, the cup that waits for the keeper of night. She turns the broom toward home. The lanterned attic fades behind like the last soft page of a book closed with both hands. In the glass, the card still reads its sentence to the room. The blanket keeps its promise. The painter dreams of water and wind and a sky made of slow light. Morwenna breathes once, long and easy. Gentle. She whispers to the roofs, to the rain, to the world. The word rides ahead, a quiet lantern on a quiet road, and the night, soft and silver and peaceful, answers by opening the way back to the small, cedar-scented house where the last warm cup waits to be poured for the keeper of night. The way home is stitched with silver thread. Roof lines soften into one gentle seam. The maple tree wears a darker shawl against the paler sky. Morwenna glides low, past the bakery asleep behind its flour-dusted panes, past the clockmaker's quiet window where time has turned to wool, past a cat watching from a sill with eyes half-mooned by contentment. The broom hums a low, even note. The night answers with a hush that feels like a hand smoothing a blanket. Her cottage appears as a small promise kept. Cedar and stone, rain dark and kind, a candle making a soft sun in the window. The garden greets her with cool breath, lavender and wet thyme, soil and quiet. Dew beads on the gate like a row of tiny lanterns. She lands beside the step and stands a moment to listen. To rain become memory, to crickets measuring the hour with patient commas, to the river's hush turned far and friendly. The tray is almost weightless now, an oiled crescent holding only the shape of warmth where cups once sat. She lifts the latch. The door gives its familiar sentence, a creak that means welcome, then a sigh that means rest. Inside, the room is dusk and honey. The candle keeps its circle. The kettle on the stove holds a low ember of heat like a small sun cupped in iron. Pip, the gray cat, unfolds from the wool blanket and steps down with the careful grace of something already half asleep. He greets Morwenna with a slow blink. She answers with the same, a temple-to-temple kind of hello. His purr begins as a thread and thickens into a river. Home, she says, and the word lands softly on every surface. The table returns it, the floorboards return it, the rafters tuck it away for winter. She sets the tray on the table and strokes the oiled wood with her thumb, a thank you for carrying the town's comfort. Then she lifts the kettle. It hums a remembered note, rain soft and sure, not boiling, not asking, only ready. Steam rises in a thin veil, curls once, and vanishes into candlelight. She tips a little water into the cocoa bowl and stirs what remains, dark velvet, waking to its own quiet fragrance, chocolate dusk, lavender hush, the round, warm star of anise. The spoon whispers the same circle it has traced all evening. Gentle, gentle, gentle. On the shelf, a single cup waits a small, sturdy vessel with a thumb-worn handle and a faint chip at the lip where old winters have kissed it. The inside is the pale of early cloud. The outside is the color of calm river stones. She warms it with a trickle from the kettle, empties the warmth to the sink, then holds the cup steady and fills it with the last of the brew. Steam climbs and settles on her cheek like a blessing. Morwenna ties no ribbon to this handle and writes no note. The words have already been spoken in the room itself, in the floor's creak, in the candle's breath, in the cat's slow thunder. If there were a card, it would read, "For the keeper of night." Pip winds around her ankles until the arrow of his tail becomes a question mark. The only question the kind that needs no answer. Are we safe? She bends, scratches the soft place between his ears, and sets the cup on the saucer with the small chip turned away. The saucer clicks on the table, porcelain to wood, a tiny bell at the end of a long, soft service. She carries the cup to her chair by the window. The chair knows her weight and has been waiting to hold it, patiently rehearsing all evening how to be the right shape for a tired spine. The cushion sighs. The blanket, folded on the arm, has the density of a cloud that loves gravity. She drapes it across her knees, finds its warm seam, and tucks the edge under one ankle. Pip hops up and arranges himself in the valley. The blanket makes loaf first, then long cat, then a perfect curled moon. His purr harmonizes with the rain's last memory on the eaves, Morwenna breathes with the cup. In, steam warm as bread. Out, lavender field. In, star that does not burn. Out, gentle, soft, peaceful. The room's sounds gather and slow. Tick from the cooling stove, a woolen hush as the blanket settles. The candle's wick giving a small cotton sigh. The kettle, set back, releases a final, satisfied breath and becomes a dark, round patience. She takes the first sip. It moves through her the way the river moved under the bridge low, sure, easing edges into curves. The taste is dark and kind. The star anise is the briefest lantern in the mouth, and then night again. Lavender is the field at her back. She leans her head to the chair's wing and lets the cup rest warm in both hands. Her shoulders fall and learn the strength that comes from releasing. In the window glass, her reflection looks like a ghost who has found a bed. The town lives in that reflection, softened. The maple silhouette, the suggestion of a distant porch, a faint square of gold that must be the careful painter's lantern sliding toward memory. Morwenna thinks of each door where steam met wood, of each ribbon lying like dusk on a mat, of each note working its small spell, untying, loosening, softening, blessing. She takes another sip and lets the thought dissolve into cocoa and the easy sound of Pip's contentment. She sets the cup on the sill and opens the window the width of a small, slow breath. Cool air enters like a friend tiptoeing in to leave a folded shawl. Rain is no longer falling. It lingers as scent and silver in the dark. Somewhere, the river writes a sentence on stones that no one can misread. Somewhere, a late train shifts in its sleep and then sleeps again. Somewhere, a wind chime moves not at all and still says yes. Morwenna lifts her hands and studies them in the candle's low circle. The faint lavender stain on the thumb, the tiny crescent flower line along the ring finger where cocoa dried, the little star of anise clinging to the cuff like a bronze idea. Useful hands, steady hands, hands that have poured and tied and set and blessed. She rubs a thumb along the crease of her palm and finds a grain of river sand she must have carried back without knowing. She smiles and keeps it, a talisman of water's patience. Gentle, she says to the room, because the room deserves the word, too. The word moves through wood and wool and flame and finds an echo in the cat's chest. Gentle, gentle, gentle. She breathes in for 4, out for 6, in for 4, out for 6. After 3 rounds, the breath becomes the room's breath, not hers alone. A tide crossing a quiet beach with no need to prove it is sea. On the table, the tray glows with a thin bloom of candlelight, an empty cradle remembering warm moons. Morwenna will oil it in the morning. Slow circles worked into wood with a cloth and a humming under her breath. She will wash the cups and set them to dry in a rack where sun will find them. She will sweep the threshold where dew made tiny stars, but not now. Now is for the last cup and the chair and the rain scent and the small life of a cat asleep. She takes another sip. The cup is less warm, more memory. She draws the blanket higher. The wool gives that deep, comforting weight that does not trap but anchors. A promise to the body that gravity is a kindness tonight. Pip kneads twice, then rests, paws tucked, nose hidden, motor low. The floorboard beneath the chair offers the softest creak, the sound of an old friend adjusting a cushion. The house is a held breath, then a released one, then a longer, easier one still. Her eyelids grow heavier the way snow grows heavier on a fence rail, quietly, without fuss, in small, even quilts. The candle's circle shrinks to a coin and then to a pearl. She could let it go out, but she leaves it a tiny star for the room to steer by. In the window, the town settles deeper into itself. A late light dims. A curtain finds its final place. The maple holds its shape like a guardian who has learned the secret of softness. Morwenna lifts the cup one last time and finds there a small sweetness left for her lips. She drinks it. The taste is farewell and welcome both. She sets the empty on the sill. Inside the porcelain, a pale moon remains, where cream kissed the curve. She touches the rim with a fingertip and feels the cool like the edge of a lake at dawn, like the first inch of pillow when you turn it to the side that has kept the nights quiet. She leans back. Her head finds the chair's hollow. Her neck loosens, vertebra by gentle vertebra. The blanket's edge meets her chin and learns her breath. With the next exhale, something unhooks below the heart a little knot she hadn't noticed saving for herself. It slips and is gone, the way a ring of river widens and vanishes after a willow's drop. Nothing urgent lives here, she whispers, and it is true in every direction. In the walls, in the rafters, in the lamp, in the cat, in the simmering quiet of the garden, in the river's silver persistence, in the moon strolling its soft path. The words settle in her bones. They settle in the room's bones. They settle in the night like gentle seeds. She closes her eyes, not all at once, not tightly, but as one closes a book one has loved, knowing it will open again where it must. In the soft dark behind her lids, a faint lavender field unfurls. A broom glides over rooftops that are less roof than quilt. Ribbons bow and go still. Doors learn the sentence of rest. Somewhere, a painter lowers a lantern. Somewhere, a nurse sinks into a wool coast of sleep. Somewhere, apples breathe at the grocer's, sweet and round. The kettle taps once in its cooling, a small goodbye. Pip's purr thins to a thread, and then to the quietest vibration, the idea of a purr. The candle keeps its pearl. Moonlight lays a square on the floor, as neat as folded linen. Night holds the house the way a river holds a stone completely and without taking. Morwenna drifts at the edge of dreaming, where thoughts unspool into softer threads and tie themselves to stars. She is not leaving the town. She is keeping it the way a lighthouse keeps the shore, by simply being a steady warmth at the edge of darkness. The keeper of night takes her rest in the chair that knows her, under the blanket that remembers her, beside the window that reflects her into the quiet it shows. And when sleep at last steps forward, calm and silver, it finds the way, open steam faded, cup empty, cat curled, floor settled, rain at the window turned to scent, and it lays its gentle hand upon her brow, as natural as moon on water, as kind as wool on skin, as peaceful as a hush that has learned the whole town's name. Night holds the town in a wool-lined bowl. Roof lines blur into one soft seam. Chimneys breathe their last faint warmth. The river keeps its silver sentence beneath the bridge. Rain has become memory, a clean scent at the window, a quiet gloss along the leaves. Moonlight settles like a shawl over everything that needs keeping. In the cedar house, a candle keeps a small pearl of flame. The keeper of night rests in her chair. The cat is a curled comma on the blanket, purr thinned to the idea of a purr. Floorboards have said all they mean to say. Silence is not empty. It is full of gentle, this is the hour for blessing. Morwenna does not rise. She does not need to. Blessings travel on breath and on listening, and the room is listening, and the night is listening, and the town has turned its face toward sleep. With her eyes closed, with her hands warm under the blanket, she begins, as she begins all good things, with a slow breath in and an even slower breath out. In, cool and silver. Out, soft and peaceful. May the houses be held, she whispers, and the words go outward like steam from a cup. They pass the candle and the window and step onto the porch, where dew beads their feet and makes them shine. They drift along Maple Street, over quilts and rugs, over polished banisters and tidy shoe rows, through kitchens that smell faintly of honey and clean mugs, into rooms that have dimmed and learned how to be kind to the dark. They cross thresholds without waking dogs or disturbing cats. They touch the small places grief has made and soften the edges. They lay their gentle hands upon doorknobs and picture frames and hooks by the door where keys rest like sleeping beetles. Held, they say, and the houses answer by settling one small inch deeper into their foundations. May the shoulders be loose. The blessing finds the night shift nurse under a wool throw, hair still damp from a hot shower, breath already the length of a short song sung twice. It finds the teacher, shawl fallen to the elbow, poem face down on the arm of the sofa, red pen asleep. It finds the grocer with fingers relaxed, not clamped, the small cuts quiet as closed mouths. It finds the soft-voiced man with the tidy line of shoes who has let his jaw unhook from the day and replaced the missing space with a warm, breathing animal of rest. Loose, it says, and muscles answer like rope, released from a cleat, no snap, only slack, only the safe droop of ease. May the thoughts be soft. The words float up to the attic, where brushes lean into one another and color has turned to field. The painter, blanket to chin, pillow cup to cheek, hears them without hearing and rolls toward the cool side of the linen. In offices where screens have dimmed and calendars have stopped shining, the blessing moves like fog on a meadow, kind and silver and refusing to hurry. It turns to mist the lists that tried to be ladders and could not reach anywhere worth reaching. It lowers the volume on what ifs until they become a moth's wings and then become nothing at all. May the clocks be gentle. Time, obedient, rounds its corners. The clockmaker's shop hums a low, friendly chord, gears easy in their cases, springs content not to pull. On kitchen stoves, green digits soften like moss. Wristwatches lie on nightstands and dream of wrists without waking them. In the river, seconds turn to water and water turns to sleep. May breath be a warm blanket. The blessing folds itself over chests and ribs, under collarbones and along spines. It tucks in the feet that are always cold. It frees the hands that curl even at rest. In, calm. Out, calmer. In, silver. Out, quiet. Morwenna's own breath joins the town's, the way one voice joins a choir by finding the note already being sung. May every bed remember you are safe. Mattresses learn the exact map of the bodies they hold and keep those roads gentle. Pillows cradle temples as if they were small birds returned to a nest. Sheets become water without wet. Quilts become dusk without dark. For those not in beds, those in chairs and on couches and in cabs and in late trains and by windows, may any surface be a harbor, any angle be a kindness, any position be enough. Outside, the maple lets a single leaf loosen, not for loss, but for permission. It lands like a soft letter on the walkway and says, rest. Along the river path, reeds answer by shivering once and then smoothing. Above rooftops, the moon lowers the lamp of itself by the smallest degree, the way a caretaker dims a nightlight when a child's breath deepens. May your dreams be silver and peaceful, Morwenna murmurs. Voice almost not a voice, breath almost not a breath. May they be made of slow water and kind wind, of lanterns in far windows, of cats purring and floorboards creaking, benevolent creaks, of wool blankets and rain that is scent and stars that remember every name. The word gentle repeats inside the blessing like a bell rung softly in the next room. Gentle, gentle, gentle. She imagines the blessing as a shawl, one she has knitted with lavender and moonlight, with quiet and steam, with ribbon and river. She pictures it unfurling over the town, edge to edge, porch to porch, rooftop to rooftop, laying its weight, not heavy, anchoring, the way gravity is a kindness in the right measure. In one house, a baby sighs and turns. In another, a kettle clicks content in cooling. In another, a clock refuses to tick for a minute and finds it can, in fact, be happy without measuring. May those who kept watch be kept now, she says, remembering the ones who iron uniforms and count pills and turn keys and scan night horizons and press cool flannels to hot foreheads. May their watch be watched over. May their tired be met with rest that knows their name. The blessing moves down corridors and along counters, into empty break rooms, through quiet engines, over the wet backs of streets. It waits at thresholds and is invited in. It sits. It keeps company. May your worries dissolve like steam, she says, and Steam, the good, faithful messenger, carries that wish to window panes and then out over shrubs and fences, over mailboxes and quiet bicycles, over roofs and chimneys, over fences and back gardens, over the river's silver. The wish does what steam does: rises, thins, vanishes, not to be lost, but to become air, to become breath, to become the way the night smells when rain has left and peace remains. In her lap, Pip shifts from comma to ellipse. The blanket holds its steady weather. The candle trims itself a little more, leaving a clean, small star. Morwenna's hands turn their palms open, receiving the room's resting as if it were a gift to unwrap slowly, in no hurry, with no fear of missing any part. May you wake when it is time, she continues, and not one moment before. May morning find you like daylight in a blue bowl, soft, poured, sufficient. May you rise with shoulders that remember ease, with thoughts that remember softness, with clocks that remember gentleness. And if morning asks for more of you than it should, may you keep a pocket of night in your pocket, a ribbon of dusk, a breath of lavender, a memory of steam on a kind cup. She quiets, not because she has finished, but because blessings are like rivers. They complete themselves by moving on. The room holds the last notes and then lets them go, like linen exhaling after a careful fold. Outside, the maple releases another leaf, not because it must, but because it, too, likes to be part of a good ritual. Morwenna opens her eyes for a moment. Candlelight makes a soft island on the table where the tray rests, empty and pleased. The window shows the town as a single shape of sleep. She could weep for the sweetness of it, but the sweetness needs no salt tonight. She closes her eyes again and listens a little longer, to the slow heartbeat of the house, to Pip's nearer silence, to the far hush of the river's silver lullaby. And then, softly, she gives the last of the night to the sleepers, and to you, and to herself. Sleep now, she blesses, and sleep deep, sleep gentle, and sleep soft. Let the quiet be your quilt. Let the moon be your small lamp. Let the rain at the window be your hymn. Let the purring be your metronome. Let the floorboards creak their kind old creak and promise you are home. May dreams come like warm cups set on safe sills. May peace sit at your bedside and not leave. May you drift and drift and drift on silver water toward a morning that loves you. The candle keeps its pearl. The blanket keeps its promise. The town keeps its breath, long and woolly and sure, and night, satisfied with its keeping, draws the shawl a little closer and watches over every sleeping roof until first light pours itself into the blue bowl of day.